Tuesday, April 29th, 2025, and it's 1 p.m. and we're here to review county properties and the fire district use request. And we'll get the fire district use request out of the way real fast. We kind of, the Fire Station 1 asked us if they could do some training up on the property that we have on the river that is usually leased out before it's leased out. It's the one up there. It's the one we rent out every year, and usually they get at the fire station.
The one on Palo Road?
Palo Road.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I know my address or by,
Yep.
where they're at. So. Yeah.
I would motion that we approve that they use that for training before the auction.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of that one. So now we're to the properties that we are going to auction. And what colors were the? I don't remember that last year.
Yeah. So I probably put some brief notes in here. So under the lease terms, or and even under the property notes, gives us some idea of what is going on with each of these properties. And when we first started this a couple years ago, when you guys started, we tried to break it down into. We have all of these properties that are FEMA buyout properties, and they're limited to what we can do with them in use. And then they're of course in various locations. And over the history of time, we've leased out some of them and more than one, and there's been different processes on how we went about that. And so that's what you guys came up with the idea of the annual auction of use and then limited time of year for use.
Okay.
And so that further broke it down into not every one of these properties is suitable for leasing out to folks. And so we broke that down into those top three, the dark green ones at the top. Those are the ones we historically rented out. They're good for recreational use. They don't they don't have any issues with bothering the neighbors or any of that kind of traffic impacts. And so we've historically leased those out, and I think we continue to put those up for auction. And then those become the ones that we can lease out. The ones in light green, each of those are, and there's some paired up ones, and they're identified on the maps that I gave, that these are properties that were, and of course we got all of these because they used to be residential properties. And then they had some level of damage to them repetitively, and then through the buyout process, they either get mitigated or bought out. And so these are just particular ones that got bought out, but they're viable parcels next door to somebody that still has their home. And so to lease them out to somebody to recreate on isn't always going to be the best conducive use to a neighboring property. At least that's been the history, or that's been the complaint level of folks complaining about utilizing these properties, is having somebody literally camp next door, which is otherwise not a recreational area. So those were why we put those properties in that category. And then the idea was that those are probably better usable by that adjacent property owner. So some of those have been historically leased out for long term. We've got the one in there, particularly there's four of them at the bottom there, they've been years ago, they were put on a 15-year lease. And I think that was renewed or updated 2 years ago. And then there's been these other ones that are out up there on Reed Road for 2-year longer term lease. So every 2 years we'll look at it. And so that was reasonable to put those, because then the neighbors can make use of the property, but not be impacted by inadvertent use or not suitable use. At least that's the way it was reviewed and looked at from the past.
Now, in some of these, like the one on Reed Road, it's not close to the river at all.
No, they're, and like I said, we identified these on the maps. They're down on Reed Road, and they're literally, again, they used to be residential properties, and similar with the ones up at Bumblebee, and those properties where they're adjacent to existing residential use. So then the yellow ones were not really suitable for any kind of a lease. That top one was, it's kind of awkwardly positioned, and it actually has lease, an easement going through it to get to the property in the back, and so developability wise, it wasn't ever, certainly wasn't ever developable, but even for uses recreational, it was literally the driveway going through to the neighboring property and to the property behind it. So, and then the other ones there's some anomaly ones where there's some weird little anomaly properties that just ended up being bought out. They were never developed. One's a triangle on somebody's driveway, and it's just this funky little property, but we own it, and it's a thing, and again, we can't get rid of it, so we're stuck with what to do with it. So it ended up on this list of, these are the ones we basically don't need to touch or don't need to do anything with, and that way it doesn't affect the adjacent property owners. The next one down in kind of the orange or the brown colored areas is properties we currently use for public works mainly, and then let's see, the bottom one that's kind of a yellow is the one we have a long-term lease on for the Base Camp Coffee folks. They came in and did a long-term lease on that.
Mm-hmm.
What used to be the park and ride parking lot, and then we redeveloped the property. There's another buyout property on the other end of that strip of properties that we made into the park and ride. And people still park on this property. They just use it for excessive parking and a place where their patrons can turn out and with RVs and stuff like that. So that's why they came in and asked for that lease. The rest on that list were other county properties that that are non-FEMA properties. They're just other properties on our list of ones we want to talk about. But in this case here, I think we're just here to talk about the FEMA properties. So I suppose go backwards. The ones that put up for auction would be the top three.
Okay.
The ones for consideration would be the rest of the ones in green. And then I suppose if somebody came in and specifically asked to lease one, you could certainly address it at that time. That's probably how I would suggest it. If somebody specifically comes in and says, I'd like to lease that one.
Okay. And maybe we can get a figure, get some kind of a figure to go to the homeowners, and if they don't want to lease it, then maybe we can lease it out, right? Or
certainly you have a choice to do whatever you see is reasonable, and that's going to be the least impactful. And,
Okay.
And if there's, any of the maps I've shown, it's hard to show such a large scale.
Yeah.
If there's something I can help understand where that property is and how it relates to the neighboring properties. As we've suggested before, I don't know if you've had a chance to go out and drive around any of these and take a look at them, but that's usually pretty helpful, is to really get a look at it. And
I did see the one where that has a little triangle in the driveway. You couldn't even pitch a tent on it.
Right, and so it's just, it is on the list. We can't ignore it, and it is what it is. But I certainly don't want to lease it out to somebody and have them pitch tent on it.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
So, because there'll be a desire to do that from somebody probably. So that's what I've got for you as far as a way to go about it. I like the idea of the auctioning it off. I think it's created a fairness to people being able to enjoy the properties in some way, shape, or form. It's a couple of bucks in our pocket. I don't know if we
let's go ahead.
Make any real money on them, but
let's go ahead and auction off the three properties we have right now. The Bumblebee property, 49 North, or ending in 80760. Did I do a motion? Okay. I'll motion to auction off the three properties we have in green. The property numbers in the last 5 digits are 80760, 61540, 61500. I should have said the address. The address is 130 Palo Road, 42982 Riverside or Riverview, and 42892 Riverview.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion?
are you going to add the same lease agreement requirements you did on the previous ones?
Yeah.
When do you
We'll
want
just
to
do-
do the auction?
Let's do it when everybody's back.
Okay.
Dave should be back. Commissioner Dill should be back, not this next week, but the week after. So we can do that auction then, and then if we do see any more that we want to put in there, we can definitely.
And I think it is a good idea if there's one that's adjacent to ask them if, that are on the lighter green, if they're interested in.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like you would
I just
want
wish we
to
could
use
talk
those
FEMA
three.
into selling the properties and put some kind of a deed restriction but then we'd have to babysit it, but.
Yeah, I agree. No, agreed. And certainly it'd be way better to put some sort of overlay zoning on it that limits building or limits allows the use or go in and build up and build high and do what we do we build homes in Florida every day of the week. So
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I often
When a
use that
hurricane
as a-
comes in and gets rid of them, they build them
So,
again.
so yeah, not that I want to build homes in the danger zones, but
Any further questions or anything?
No.
Meeting adjourned. Well, thank you, Dan.